Have you ever stood in front of a mirror and realized the person draining your energy is the one you keep choosing to let in? We talk a lot about self-love, but let's be honest. Sometimes self-love looks like the terrifying act of saying no to the people who pretend to care, and it hurts like hell. I remember the day I realized that a friend I had loved like a sister didn't really see me anymore. We had shared so much: birthday cakes with candles that carried whispered wishes, nights when our hearts broke at the same time for different reasons, inside jokes that only made sense to us. For years, she was the first person I called when life got messy, and the last person I texted before sleep. It felt like the kind of bond that would outlast anything. But slowly, the conversations shifted. What used to be encouragement turned into backhanded compliments. Her laughter at my dreams started sounding like disbelief. When I hurt, her comfort began to feel performative. And when I succeeded, there was a strange silence on the other end of the line, a pause that didn't match celebration. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was being paranoid, sensitive, too much. I made excuses for her because I was terrified of facing the truth. The friendship had changed. Or maybe she had always been like that, and I was just finally ready to see it. The hardest part wasn't the loss of the relationship. It was the loss of who I believed we were to each other. I kept trying to fix it, to go back, to revive a version of us that maybe never truly existed in the first place. We don't talk enough about the grief that comes with outgrowing people, the way it shatters your identity to realize that someone who once felt like home might actually be hurting you. And the truth is, it's hard to walk away from a friendship that holds your history, even if it's wounding your present. Our brains are wired for connection, for familiarity. Psychology tells us that we often cling to toxic dynamics, not because we're weak, but because our nervous systems are trying to protect us. It's survival. We think, better the devil I know than the loneliness I don't. We rationalize toxicity because we're terrified of being alone with the silence it leaves behind. But here's what I've learned in the quiet that followed. The ache of letting go is temporary. The cost of holding on, that's what drains your soul. Because here's the raw truth. Home isn't a place that makes you question your worth. It's a space that sees you, holds you, and never asks you to shrink. There's this strange, heavy guilt that wraps around you when you start thinking about stepping away from a toxic friendship. It's not loud, it's not obvious. It's this quiet, gnawing voice that whispers things like, but what about all the good times? What if you're overreacting? They were there for you once. You owe them loyalty. I felt that guilt in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I'd sit there, replaying every moment that could justify staying. Remember when she stood by you during that breakup? Remember that one time she defended you? I'd cling to scraps of kindness because it felt safer than facing the betrayal that kept repeating itself. There's a part of us, especially those of us who are wired for empathy, for connection, that would rather absorb the hurt than risk hurting someone else. We tell ourselves it's just easier to put up with it. We convince ourselves that maybe if we try harder, love harder, explain better, things will change. But that guilt is a trap. It keeps us silent because it convinces us that choosing ourselves is selfish. It tells us that drawing boundaries makes us the bad guy. And so we stay. We stay longer than we should. We stay until we barely recognize ourselves. What I didn't understand back then is something I now say to anyone who feels that same ache of guilt. Guilt is what happens when you start to break patterns that benefited someone else but harmed you. Psychologists talk about this as fawn response, where instead of fighting or fleeing, we appease, We make ourselves smaller, quieter, easier to love. We try to manage someone else's emotions to keep the peace. And guilt is the alarm that goes off the moment we stop doing that. But here's what no one tells you. Guilt isn't a stop sign. It's a signal that you're stepping into new, unfamiliar territory where you finally put your well-being first. And the deeper truth, you are not cruel for wanting to be safe. You are not heartless for wanting relationships that don't bruise your spirit. Guilt is the storm before peace arrives. Feel it. But don't let it chain you to what's breaking you. There's a kind of betrayal that we don't talk about enough. The one we sense but don't want to see. The betrayal that hides behind a smile, that shows up in small moments where a friend's eyes don't quite match their words. The kind that leaves you questioning your own instincts because you desperately want to believe the best in them. Relief. It was so quick I almost missed it. And the second I saw it, she masked it with a sympathetic tilt of her head with all the right words. But I couldn't unsee it, and it broke something deep inside me. For a long time after, I convinced myself I was imagining it. Maybe I'm being paranoid, maybe I'm projecting, because the truth that someone I loved could feel comforted by my failure was too painful to bear. Psychologists have a name for this hidden betrayal: covert competition. It happens when someone claims to love you, but secretly measures their worth against your struggles. When your pain makes them feel better about their own life. When your victories feel to them like losses. And the most heartbreaking part, we see the signs, but we silence ourselves. We silence that gut feeling because we're terrified of what it means if we're right. That's where we live, when we live under silence. Silence talks. To sum up, when your face is turned from you, you see the signs, but we're terrified of what it means if we're right. Because if we're right, everything we believed about that person, and maybe even about ourselves, starts to crumble. I think this is why betrayal by a friend cuts deeper than most wounds. It's not just the loss of the person, it's the loss of the story we told ourselves about what we meant to them. And here's the raw, soul-piercing truth I learned. The deepest betrayal isn't when they fail you. It's when you fail yourself by pretending not to see it. Your intuition is not your enemy. It's the part of you still fighting for your wholeness. When your heart shows you the truth, believe it, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. There's this fear that creeps in when you think about stepping away from a toxic friendship. A fear so real, so heavy, that it almost convinces you to stay. It's not just the fear of being alone, it's the fear of being left behind. The fear of silence where there used to be noise, of empty weekends, of no one checking in, no one asking, "How are you really?" I remember the first night after I finally stopped reaching out to a friend who'd been hurting me for years. The phone didn't ring, the notifications didn't light up my screen. The quiet was deafening. And as much as I had longed for peace, I felt this sinking panic. What if this is it? What if I end up alone forever because I walked away? It's strange how we can be surrounded by people who diminish us, who drain us, who clip our wings, and yet we stay because the alternative feels unbearable. We convince ourselves that any connection is better than no connection at all, that bad company is better than no company, that we can tolerate the tiny cuts to our spirit as long as we're not left to face the vastness of being alone. But here's what I came to understand in that quiet space, through the loneliness that at first felt like punishment. The fear of being alone is really the fear of facing ourselves. Because when the toxic noise fades, we're left with the raw, unfiltered truth of who we are, what we've settled for, what we truly want. And that truth, it can feel overwhelming. Psychology tells us that we're wired for connection. Our brains interpret social rejection and isolation as a threat to survival. That's why leaving a toxic friendship can feel like we're risking everything, even if staying costs us our peace, our joy, our sense of worth. But here's what no one tells you in the moment you choose yourself. There's a kind of loneliness that heals, a kind that strips away the noise so you can finally hear your own voice, a kind that teaches you to stand in your own light. And slowly, that silence stops feeling like emptiness. It starts feeling like freedom. So if you're in that space, if you've just stepped away and you're staring at the quiet, terrified, you're not lost. You're not failing. You're finally coming home to yourself. Saying no to a toxic friendship doesn't always look the way we imagine it. It's rarely some big dramatic moment where you slam the door, block the number, or deliver a fiery speech about how you deserve better. No, more often, it's quieter. It's slower. It's the quiet courage of small decisions, repeated over time, that add up to freedom. I remember thinking that I needed some perfect, clean ending, some final conversation where I would explain everything and they would understand. Or at least I'd get closure. But that conversation never came. What came instead were moments when I chose myself in tiny, almost invisible ways. I stopped being the one who always texted first. I stopped rearranging my schedule to meet their needs. I stopped laughing at jokes that cut me down just so I wouldn't seem sensitive. I stopped making excuses for their bad days that became bad patterns. And let me tell you, every one of those choices felt terrifying at first because I had trained myself over time to equate no with rejection, with failure, with losing love. I thought that by setting boundaries, I was being unkind. But what I didn't see then is that no isn't an attack. No is self-respect spoken out loud. There's a reason we struggle with this. Psychology shows us that our nervous system is wired to seek safety in connection. We fear that if we say no, if we stop pleasing, stop accommodating, stop shrinking to fit, we'll be abandoned, we'll be unloved. And so, for so long, we whisper yes when our soul is screaming no. But the truth is this. Saying no isn't the end of a relationship. It's the beginning of an honest one. First with yourself, then with everyone else. No is the bridge that leads you back to who you were before you started bending. No is the quiet, brave choice to stop abandoning yourself for the sake of keeping the peace. And what I've learned, what I hope you let sink into your bones, is this. When you say no to what harms you, you create space for what heals you. When you say no to what drains you, you invite in what restores you. When you say no to what makes you small, you make room for the life that's been waiting for your yes. It's not easy, it never will be, but the quiet courage of saying no, that's the beginning of everything you've been longing for. If you're standing at that crossroads right now, torn between keeping the peace or keeping your soul intact, choose you. You are not here to be drained. You are here to be loved fully and freely. And that starts with the terrifying, beautiful word, no.